Well, welcome you all. I'm Arda, the CEO and co-founder of Sertifier. I'm really excited to be here today to discuss something I feel passionate about, helping people, organizations bridge the gap between verified skills and career opportunities. When we started Sertifier, the goal was simple. To create a platform that makes it easy for people to get recognition for their skills and their achievements in a secure and a verifiable way. In today's rapidly changing job market with new roles emerging and the rise of the gig economy, we believe that verified, trustworthy credentials are more important than ever before. So credentials aren't just about having a certificate. They're about building credibility, ensuring career mobility, and providing value that lasts. Partnering with Velocity Network Foundation has allowed us to take this vision even further, adding a layer of trust and security that is crucial in the modern workforce. We are not just creating digital certificates, but we are empowering individuals and organizations to thrive in this dynamic environment by ensuring that skills are both recognized and transferable wherever their journey takes them. So today I'm thrilled to share the stage with Etan, who leads the ecosystem at Velocity Network Foundation. And as we dive into how our collaboration can drive change in the credentialing space and what it means for the future of work. Etan, welcome.
Thank you, Arda. It's a pleasure
to see you here. Could you please do a bit of introduction on your end? I wanted to give brief information about you, but it will be really delightful on my end to hear not just about yourself, also your story, also Velocity Network Foundation as well.
Thank you. So thanks for inviting me, and it's wonderful hearing your vision and what was the trigger for you to found Sertifier, because I think although we come from very different angles and our solutions complement each other, the inception of the Velocity Network was also out of much of the same passion that you said of empowering individuals. So I spent most of my career, 25 years of my career, in HR, both as a practitioner in large global organizations as an HR professional, and then for many years as an advisor, and led a consulting business that advised organizations on digital transformation of HR, their HR systems and their HR functions, right? And actually through that work, we started realizing that, wow, we live in this digital age, and yet we still rely on resumes and on self-reported information on LinkedIn. And we all want to have, in the HR community, this wonderful skill-based, personalized experience for organizations and individuals. But we can't really do that unless we can trust the information individuals share with us. And unless when someone comes to our organization, they can present themselves in a way that is really skill-oriented, skill-based, and trustworthy, not just someone makes up their own story. And then when they leave, they can leave with a richer portfolio because they've gained more experiences. They've proven more skills while they worked for us. The resume was invented more than 600 years ago. If you guys look it up on the internet, Leonardo da Vinci is claimed to be the first person to write a resume when he applied to the Duke of Milan to get a job with him. And actually, in the first recorded resume, Leonardo da Vinci lied. So the idea that self-reported resumes are not exactly the truth, they're the best representation I can make of myself, has always existed, right? But the idea that I'll be able to transact digitally as easily as double-clicking my Apple Pay or my Google Pay and share my credentials easily, and they can be trusted, just like a payment can be trusted, and that will empower individuals to gain much more opportunity and reduce the friction, is exactly what the Velocity Network Foundation was formed under. And it really relies on partners and organizations like Sertifier to enable this trust to actually happen through very user-focused applications, both for the issuing organizations and for the individuals.
That I agree with. And it was a really interesting story in background, especially on Leonardo da Vinci's experience and his lie on the first resume that the whole world has seen so far. Regarding the whole verification process, regarding the enhanced security that we can bring into the table, the dialogue here, I guess the vision Velocity Network Foundation brings into the dialogue and the tools that we combine with certifiers, this year credential management enablement, it's really important to better understand the technological infrastructure that we can bring into the solution that we are talking about. And I guess at the heart of this dialogue, we bring blockchain at some point. I know it's at some point a trending keyword that was really popular almost 3 to 4 years ago. It pivoted along the journey of its use cases, but especially at the heart of the blockchain technology, it brings us not just enhanced security, but also layer that can be easily trusted and verified instantly. On the topic of blockchain, I know Velocity Network brings a lot. Blockchain is often mentioned as a game changer, but it can be a bit of a buzzword for some people. So could you break down maybe how blockchain really changes the game for career credentials and why it definitely matters for the most of the people here?
Perfect. Thanks for that question. So I'm an HR person, and I probably didn't hear of blockchain or Bitcoin a few years ago when it started. But when we started, we were looking for a solution that can be trusted by everyone, anywhere in the world, so that I can own and hold my credentials and share them with an employer, share them on a job board, share them with a university in order to apply for a master's or an advanced degree, and so on, share them with a licensing body, and that body can verify and trust them without going back to the source, right? This is really important because, one, from a privacy perspective, I don't want to have to go back to the source. Two, that source may go out of business. That's the universities disappear from the world, employers get closed. So I want to be able to share my data that I own with a third party, and that party can verify it easily and quickly without having to go back to the source. And if I'm sharing a whole resume with 30, 40, 50 facts, today, if you want to verify all that, you need to go to 30 or 40 or 50 different entities to verify that information. We want to be able to go to one trust registry, and I'll explain what a trust registry is, and verify all that information, and instead of going to multiple different primary sources, the issuers, and verify that information. So the idea behind the use of verifiable credentials in a trust registry is that there is an immutable means it can't be erased and it can't be changed, source that can be trusted, right? So a university issues a degree, or an employer issues an employment record, or a training institution issues a badge of a certificate, and that credential or badge is anchored, the proof of it is anchored somewhere that never goes away and can never be changed, okay? And that's where blockchain starts coming into play, because on one hand, we want that to be extremely secure. We want it to be built in a way that no one can change it. And one of the advantages of distributed ledger technology, i.e. blockchain, is that it is, once you've written a new block to the blockchain, it can never be changed. That's really important because it means it can't be hacked, right? It can't be erased. It can't be manipulated. And that's one element. But the second, I think, even more important element is when we set out to set up this trust framework, we wanted to ensure that no single organization controls it. We already have a problem around the world with a few major tech companies having so much control over our data, over the infrastructure of our transactions, and so on. We said we don't want any single organization to have the ownership and control over this. And the use of distributed ledger technology is brilliant in that no single organization now controls. We can distribute the trust registry so that it actually is sitting at the same time at many different locations, hosted by many different organizations, and no single one of them can make a change in the rules and basically, like the internet, just in the same way that the internet is distributed. And so even if part of the internet goes down, other parts continue to retain. The same thing is true about using blockchain for a trust registry. It's a distributed ledger. And in that sense, it's immutable, and no organization can really have an influence over taking it down. So it's survivable, and it's very, very safe and secure. And those are the reasons why I use blockchain. So we mostly think of blockchain as a source of cryptocurrency, but one of the beautiful things about it is giving features and functionalities like the ones we wanted to have to ensure trust for the data.
Yeah, I agree. And it's definitely not just a transformative but also a disruptive technology within this area, especially because usage of blockchain, especially on the economic side, it is still an ongoing process, and it has been an excitement for majority of the people to basically leverage some ecosystem opportunities, let's say. But at the end of the day, having a data that cannot directly be owned by a single entity, that is decentralized, that can be verified, that cannot be altered. If there are alterations, revocations, some disruptions, that can also be understood. It is actually the meaning of the transparency, I might say. So it's a great excitement for especially the future of work, because in the future of work, while I was doing the introduction, as I mentioned, the gig economy, on gig economy side, the individual skill sets and their verifiability is going to be it is already the highest importance when it gets to understanding whether they can do the job or not. If they are able to do the job, then they can be trusted, then they can be paid also. And with that velocity, with that enablement, it can also provide a momentum for the individuals to invest into their selves, and by so it can provide a self-learning environment, a self-progressing learning environment for majority of the people, and it will transition the whole curriculum-based, maybe the higher education institution focus education process, and it would disrupt everything eternally. So it would change the future as well. Regarding the future set, regarding the future adoption and the vision that we are having right now, since we are talking about the resumes at some point, maybe a similar and traditional question when it gets to the interviews during those job opportunities. When you look 5 years ahead, Etan, how do you envision the adoption of Velocity Network across different industries? I know it would be, I guess, ideal for you to tell about some of the already existing examples here, because at Certifier we are also involved at some points, and it's not just an ongoing process, but it's already an improved process and a verified process already. So where do you see the most of the exciting opportunities lies ahead?
Good. Yeah, so I think what we're experiencing is really interesting. I don't know what industries the listeners here are from, but we actually see two pretty different use cases depending significantly on which industry they're in and what the business challenges are. They're not exclusive, so some industries both use cases are relevant, but most industries will fall into one or two of these two situations which we're experiencing in the market in the last couple of years. So one is in highly regulated industries. So take industries like healthcare, like banking, like education, like gas and oil, right? Industries where the challenge for employers is to reduce risk, where there's a lot of compliance elements to ensuring that the credentials that they're receiving are true and correct and up to date, right? They spend a lot of time and money in verifying information because they're required to, or because there's a very high risk involved in not verifying all that information. And they're looking for ways to make it simpler. Their goals are to reduce time to hire, to reduce cost of hire, and to reduce risk and fraud in hiring, right? So, that's what we're seeing in those industries. And where verifiable credentials anchored to a trust registry like Velocity Network fits in, is that now these organizations can, in a compliant way, shorten their cycle times and their costs significantly. So, for instance, in healthcare, we see that the time it takes to get a healthcare practitioner, a nurse, for example, who was already approved for the job, could take 2, 3, 4 weeks often to verify all the information about her training and her licenses and her experiences to be able to put her by the bedside. And that can have real impact on people's lives and the quality of care. Particularly if that individual has also traveled multinationally. So think of a nurse who was born and trained in the Philippines, and then they have worked for 2 or 3 years in Dubai, and then maybe moved to the United States. An American employer needs to verify her education in the Philippines and her work experience in Dubai. This can take weeks, right? When the nurse is not employed and the hospital is waiting for someone to start to work. So for compliance-based organizations and industries, the real opportunity here is that you can now press a button and processes that could have taken weeks take seconds, right? And I think that's the great opportunity for the compliance-driven organizations, and we already are seeing first evidence of that shortened cycle time, particularly in the healthcare in the United States, but in other places as well. I think the other different use case, which is more true in competitive industries that are skill-based and where there's a lack of resources, is what you were talking about, Arda, at the beginning of our conversation, about what happens when people are empowered with proof of their skills and their training and their, right? We're seeing industries, take cyber, take advanced manufacturing, right? Take areas where there's not enough supply for existing demand, and where the traditional criteria for hiring someone like a degree may not be giving opportunities to all the relevant talent that actually have the right skills, but are very hard to identify. It's a lot easier to say, if I need a programmer, let's find someone who has a bachelor's degree in computer science, than it is to say, I need someone who has this level of programming skills and analytical capabilities and so on, right? And it's a lot easier to identify and verify a degree than it is to identify and verify skills. That's where having credentialing solutions like Sertifier, issuing digital verifiable credentials to a person, where an organization can absolutely trust those credentials, not have to retest, not have to verify, but actually know confident for a high level of confidence that this is true, can really open up a broader ecosystem of candidates, can address talent problems, and can speed up recruiting and give opportunity to populations that wouldn't necessarily have the opportunity, what in the U.S. is often referred to as stars, or individuals that are built up skills through alternative methods. So I think those are the two main opportunities, both for the individuals and the organizations, that trusted, verifiable credentials create.
That I agree with. And I guess this question from Elisa, it's on the point right now. That's exactly what we are talking about. But like the question states, could we see a significant shift in how academic achievements are recognized globally? I guess based on the statements that you just shared, getting a validated certificate, diploma, a degree from anywhere in the world and transferring it into another country and getting instant recognition and be validated within the country to be employed to do the same job in another country, especially on the regulated job opportunities, especially on the healthcare. It is really essential and to the point to adopt this type of technologies.
Question is great. Thank you, Alyssa, for that. I think when we look at academic achievements, there are actually two separate levels that are emerging. So one is the classic degree, right? And although we're usually, when we think about digital credentials, we think of micro credentials and badges. It's actually, we're trying to encourage many more institutions, education institutions, to issue their degrees and even their traditional transcripts as verifiable digital credentials, right? We know that still in the education world, there are countries and organizations where you actually send a physical transcript with a stamp of the institution in a sealed envelope to a third party, right? That take days or weeks to receive. So we are working with many education institutions around the world and student information systems and credentialing platforms to start issuing degrees. Now, that will solve one problem, and that's the verification. But one of the things that we need to separate is between verification and evaluation. So if I have a nurse who is trained in the Philippines, verifying that she actually has a bachelor's degree in nursing should take a second. Evaluating whether a nursing degree in the Philippines and a nursing degree in the U.S., for example, is actually equivalent is a little bit more complicated, but there actually is work being done around the world in creating more clarity around evaluation. So Velocity solves the challenge of verification. It doesn't solve the challenge of evaluation, but that will get better and better. There's a very interesting organization called the Groninger Declaration Network that is doing a lot of work with institutions around the world on the evaluation element and the mobility of global academic records. I think the other element, that's one, is the degree itself. I think the other interesting element is actually the micro-credentials, right? So we traditionally think of academic institutions mostly focused on providing a degree, and if you've only earned part of that degree, you have nothing to show. I think where the advanced universities around the world are really experimenting, it's still early, but we're starting to see that trend growing. And I'm sure, Arda, you have examples we probably want to talk about, is where universities are saying it's one thing, a degree, but while you're earning a degree, you're actually building up capabilities, you're building up skills, and you should be able to showcase the skills that you've learned, even if you haven't earned the full degree, right? If you've already taken 4 courses in statistics and you have a skill around analyzing data, you should be able to present that. And even you leverage that to upgrade your work opportunities now, even though if you're only after your second year or your third year of a degree. So we are seeing more and more education, academic institutions, not only focus on the final degree, but start issuing micro credentials and badges along the way, which have a lot of value in the labor market and help the individuals, even if they don't complete the degree right now, to already benefit from the education and training they've received. But I'm sure you're seeing some of that with your customers as well.
That I agree with you, definitely 100%. Because as you mentioned, that, and especially out of curriculum activities, they do the real impact nowadays for the fresh alumni when it gets to the employability and job seeking process, and when it gets to the alumni management of the higher education institutions, majority of the universities. I can give an example here for one of our customers, Arda University. They started to pay attention into informal learning of their students, and it carries the utmost importance here, in my humble opinion, because the way informal education takes place, it carries the utmost importance when it gets to the verification of the understanding, the focus, the attention the student pays directly, not just the curriculum they get from the transcript on a traditional method, but also there are signals that needs to be taken into consideration when paying attention to the roadmap of an individual's career planning. Because when it gets to I do not know, doctorate on any type of engineering, but also meaningful understanding of leadership skills on the soft skill side, and also some sort of public speaking skill on maybe at some point hard skill part. It would turn the engineer directly into something else, definitely, and it would take their whole career roadmap planning eventually, in my humble opinion. Therefore, it is really important for especially the curriculum-based education institutions, in that case, majority of them higher education institutions, to transition into paying attention the out of curriculum activities directly, and finding a way to verify them with some sort of credentialing. And in that sense, I guess verifiable credentials for the micro degrees, for the micro credentials, it makes sense for them. Regarding this workforce trends, maybe we still have time. Last 2 questions here. With the rise of this gig economy that is being a trend, and more fluid workforce we are seeing on the workforce mobility, how do you think Velocity can help organizations stay ahead of the curve in managing this talent? Because Velocity Network Foundation is not just a technology developer network. It's a foundation that pays attention into talent management, talent building, talent tracking, and verification also. So it will be really essential, I guess, to better understand how we envision the site.
Right. Great. So, what's really interesting is, if you look 30 years, 40 years ago, most people joined a company, and in many cases, most likely spent their entire career in that company. And that company knew everything about that person, right? That company was the only place where you trained. It's where you had all your work experiences and so on. 2 things have happened and are continuing to happen more and more frequently. People are changing jobs much more frequently, and that's continuing. So, in some places in the world, we're down to an average of about 3 years, 2.5, 3 years. But for your younger populations, even less. The average is 3, but that means the young people are changing every year or 2. Maybe the older are staying a little bit longer. Not only that, they're also not only learning and working within one organization, right? As you mentioned, the gig economy. Someone may be working for you, but they're actually learning on Coursera over the weekend or on LinkedIn Learning. They may actually be gigging within another organization in their free time. So the idea that an organization knows everything about a person over a long period of time is no longer as the assumption. in the world where people are constantly moving around and building up their portfolio of knowledge and skills and experiences from multiple sources, the only way to really create value in the data is if the individual truly has control of all that information. So I may be working for one company part-time, but I may be on a gig platform and gaining experiences from multiple different gigs that I'm doing, and I may be learning it in my free time on different learning platforms. The only way that all that information about a person will be valuable and can be used to help that person continue to gain more and more opportunities if that person owns and controls their portfolio, right? And the only way to do that is using a trust framework like the Velocity Network. I think that's why Certifier benefits so much from being on top of the Velocity Network and being an interface that leverages our trust framework, so that an individual can now build all this information, even if they come for a short-term gig assignment, share that information or whatever they want to share with an employer, maybe for 2 months, maybe for 3, gain more experience and more skills at that employer, add on to that portfolio and take it with them to continue to the next place. Think about how much effort employers are doing today in trying to identify people's skills and so on. By the time they figured it out, the person leaves. Instead of being able to receive a full digital trusted portfolio when the person joins, add more things to it and let the person take it on with them when they leave. And that's where I think that the Velocity enables that to start happening, which is a big supporter of a much more fluid workforce, a much more active gig economy, gives people many more opportunities, and creates more mobility in the labor market.
And on the employer side, it is really essential to understand, not just for the individual who takes the learning from different channels, also the employers provide learning education from different sources and bringing a pool of data, creating a pool of data for their employees to better understand how do they learn and where do they learn, and creating an alignment between all of the skill sets that they gather. It will create an economy that provides not just saving, but a better understanding and also better management for the employers as well. So it's a win-win situation for everyone. Everyone wins in this situation. Before closing today's, by the way, I really enjoyed our time. Would you like to add on top everything that you just mentioned?
I would just summarize and say, look, I think most people have never heard of verifiable credentials. If we had asked you on this, people have heard about digital credentials, or you wouldn't be on this call. But the idea of verifiable trust is a new concept. I would just say that by being a customer of Certifier, obviously you're benefiting from all the advantages of Velocity built in. But I do encourage you to ask your large language model or the AI of choice about verifiable credentials, and read a little bit about it. I think it will really, the work that we're doing in trust and verifiable data as the Velocity Network Foundation is really going to change a lot of the way the labor market operates, give people opportunity, and reduce a lot of friction for individuals. So I do encourage you to learn more about this and enjoy the benefits that you can get with the platform that you're already using with Certifier that is already decided to take advantage of that infrastructure. And thank you, Arda, for having me.
Of course, it on like, especially on that sense, if you are, we have invited a number of clients of Certifier, our partners, and also prospective clients as well, or network members of Velocity. So if you happen to have any questions on the adaptation, on the use cases of verifiable credentials here, we're always here to help you in this manner. We have all of the documentation that is essential for you to answer any type of question. So thank you all so much for joining us today. It has been fantastic to dive into the world of digital credentials, verifiable credentials, and explore how partnerships between Certifier and Velocity Network Foundation is creating new opportunities for career growth and trust in the labor market. So we believe that the future of work is about more than just job titles. It is about the skills we bring, the experiences we accumulate, and the credibility we build. So with Velocity-enabled digital credential wallet, we are making it possible for individuals and organizations to navigate the job market with transparency, security, and genuine trust. So I hope that today's conversation helped shed some light on how these innovations can transform your approach to credentialing. If you have any more questions, as I just mentioned, or if you would like to explore this further, feel free to reach out. We would love to help you on this journey. We are going to send follow-up emails right after this meeting of ours. Once again, thank you for being here, and a big thank you to Etan for sharing his insights. Let's keep building a future where credentials empower everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.